Good afternoon. Thank you for coming in today. My name is Andrew Costa, Commissioner of Police, and with me today I have Acting Comptroller for Customs, Bill Perry, Joint Forces Commander Rear Admiral Jim Gilmore, and Detective Superintendent Greg Williams, our Director of the National Organised Crime Group. Today we are revealing the details of a significant seizure of cocaine in an operation led by New Zealand Police and supported by the New Zealand Customs Service and the New Zealand Defence Force. We believe we've dealt a significant blow to an international criminal syndicate's operation after we intercepted 3.2 tonnes of cocaine that had been dropped at a floating transit point in the middle of the Pacific Ocean. The Royal New Zealand Navy vessel, NZDF Manawanui, was deployed late last week to retrieve the product, which had been packaged in 81 bales. The NZDF Manawanui sailed for 6 days back to New Zealand, arriving into Auckland early yesterday morning, where the product under police escort was taken to a secure facility for examination, documenting and destruction. This is the largest find of illicit drugs by New Zealand agencies by some margin. We estimate the wholesale value of the drugs to be around $500 million, and we believe this was destined for the Australian market. We believe there was enough cocaine to service the Australian market for about 1 year, and this would be more than New Zealand would use in 30 years. No arrests have been made at this stage, but our staff, working with our partner agencies, continue to investigate the shipment. We have no doubt that a seizure of this scale lands a major financial blow to those involved in its trade, from producers to distributors. This demonstrates the high value of agencies working together in the fight against drugs. I want to acknowledge the support from our key partners, particularly NZDF and Customs, and note we have had additional support from international partners, including from the Five Eyes Law Enforcement Group. I want to acknowledge the National Organised Crime Group within Police, which is led by Detective Superintendent Greg Williams. I'm incredibly proud of what has been achieved here and the impact this will have on organised crime. We know that the distribution of any illicit drug causes a great amount of social harm, as well as negative health and financial implications for communities, especially drug users and their families. I'm happy to take questions, as we all will be, but first I will hand over to Acting Comptroller Bill Perry to say a few words, and then Rear Admiral Gilmore.
Thank you, Commissioner. Can I start by saying that collaboration across agencies is a force multiplier. We could not have done it by ourselves, the police could not have done it by themselves, and the Defence Force couldn't have done it by themselves. It is a force multiplier. We have a huge coastline, we have a huge Pacific Ocean that surrounds our coastline, and for us, the maritime space that we're operating in is becoming more and more important to us as we progress over the years. The COVID response that all of our agencies have been dealing with has fundamentally changed some things up for us, in that it constricted air movements, it constricted some commercial movements. We see perhaps this is just an indication that the transnational organised crime groups are testing the market in different ways. So as agencies, we need to collaborate. I think that it's evidenced here today that when we do collaborate in the right space, we do get some phenomenal results. As the Commissioner has said, this is the largest interception in New Zealand's history of a particular commodity. It is concerning that we last year's interceptions were in the vicinity of about 800 kilos of cocaine. You can see that this is well tops that, but it is an unfortunate thing that methamphetamine for us is still the major drug that we are significantly worried about. I think I might finish with that at the moment and hand to John.
Thank you, Bill. Thank you, Commissioner. Good afternoon. The New Zealand Defence Force is very pleased to be part of this collaborative effort alongside our partner government agencies, New Zealand Police, New Zealand Customs Service, and others. It required a joint approach from your military, utilising aspects of the maritime and air component, and we're very pleased that we're able to bring highly trained professionals to be able to work alongside our partner agencies and deliver the successful outcome. I should also note that understanding what is happening within the maritime domain around New Zealand is very important. And if we are going to be dealing with transnational crime, illegal fisheries or any other threat to New Zealand's national security, maintaining that awareness of what's going on in the maritime domain is very important, and of course our abilities to be able to respond within it. Thank you, Commissioner.
Thank you. We're now happy to take any questions. Detective Superintendent Williams will speak to the more operational details. So,
can you tell us more about this floating transit? What do they look like?
So basically, So basically, cocaine floats, in essence, but it's basically set up into nets. You're going to see some images of it that we've got to release to you. They're set up in nets with flotation devices, and the aim is for them to sit there, and then at some point someone's going to come and get it. In essence, it's not uncommon. This typology is not uncommon. In recent times, for instance, there's been cocaine wash up in Tonga. You might recall that. That's the same sort of typology stuff. So the methodology here is well known across the world in terms of small ships coming, putting the product into the water, and then shore party boats coming to actually get it.
Whereabouts was the floating craft in relation to a sort of jurisdictional area?
6 days sailing northeast of New Zealand was where it was placed. So it's quite a way out.
So still within New Zealand waters?
No, in international waters.
So any sort of prosecution jurisdictionally, if arrests were made, etc., how does that work?
Yeah, so it hasn't arrived in any country per se, but obviously there's an intent that's come probably out of South America, likely out of Ecuador, which is often where we see it coming. So at the moment, we're obviously working pretty hard with our international partners to understand who's behind this. We can't really go into the detail of that for obvious reasons, but we're obviously aware of that. I think one of the key things here about this too is, as we're saying, we have a massive expansion recently across the world in terms of our police liaison officers' roles, and also with customs as well. So one of the key ones we have actually is up into LA, which means that now we're working with international partners like the US and into South America, right down there. Our allies are going right down to South America, so we have a good sense of what the cartels are doing and the typology work and the operational stuff. We work extremely close with DEA, who are now here in New Zealand, and other agencies. So I think that gives us a really good understanding, in essence, of the typologies and the tradecraft and that sort of stuff, and that's really critical to the work that we need to do along with customs and again with defence and disrupting the flow of these drugs into our communities.
So how exactly did it come to your attention?
We're not commenting on that.
Can you talk us through when you found the 3.2 tonnes of cocaine? Did you find it just floating in the water, or did you intercept a vessel?
No, it's floating in the water.
Right, and
yeah.
How did you know that?
We're not commenting.
How long would it have been there for?
Not long. So it's not been there long. So yeah, but again, we can't comment at the point on that sort of stuff.
Is it a higher traffic area? Would you know the?
No, that was actually out quite an interesting place in terms of where it was. But again, like I said, we've seen stuff up in the islands being put in the sea. The currents move stuff around quite a bit too, so we understand that. I think the other point here to stress too is how this kind of works is, if you imagine at this sort of level, you've got a reasonable investment from someone wanting to purchase 3.24 tonnes. They've got to kind of come up with some money first. They've got to come up with transportation costs. This is a significant disruption to transnational crime groups in terms of the loss of the value of the sale of this product and the harm, obviously into communities. This will have a massive impact across those communities, right back to the supply line, right back to those people producing this in Colombia.
You mentioned there were trackers on the nets, or one of you did, sorry. But is there any way of being able to trace back where those trackers came from?
Again, we haven't made any comment about trackers at all. But all I can say is operationally, our key focus now is to try and identify internationally those people responsible. And you know, it's not uncommon too. The other amazing thing I think for us is that we've got incredible outreach across the world. So we've identified a number of big players across the world that have impacted on New Zealand and actually gone and extradited them back to hold them accountable in New Zealand. So we have no issue doing that. And that part of that too is actually that international partnership too, because we can work with our partners around that sort of getting that sort of support around around achieving that.
So, Andrew Costa, you said that the drugs were likely for the Australian market. What indications sort of gave that to you guys?
So, well, basically it's pretty simple, right? New Zealand is not a cocaine market in essence. We consume at the moment about 1.7 kilos a week, and that's increased dramatically probably in the last sort of half a year. And that's because we do have international crime groups trying to drive up the market in New Zealand. You know, the prices here are high compared to, say, the US, so that's why they bring it here. But, you know, we are tiny compared to the US, to Australia, right? So there's no way that 3.4 tonnes is coming here. You know, we do not stockpile here. We've run recent cases and have matters before the court now where the intent was to bring it potentially through New Zealand and transship into Australia, but Australia is the market down here for that amount.
How did Australian authorities, how did they react to this news?
They're exceptionally pleased that we've taken the step. I mean, and that's part of that key partnership between Australia and us and law enforcement in Australia. We work very closely with them on a broad range of crime types, including transnational crime. And again, I think, for them, fantastic. We've taken 3.4 tonnes out that's not hitting their markets, going to the transnational crimes and creating massive social harm in their communities.
How does this compare to previous busts or operations?
It's next level, really.
What's the next closest?
700 kilograms, so it's roughly, it's more than 4 times as large as the previous largest.
In the photos provided to media, there is a photo of a Batman symbol and
Yes.
a clover. Can you just talk us through?
Yeah, that's their trademark logos. So,
Whose trademark logo?
the producers. So it's kind of like in the underworld, it's like, here's my mark, you can trust me. It's
So
there.
do you know who the trademark logo belongs to?
Yeah.
Do you know where the producers are?
Well, we might be able to, but it's early days for that.
Oh.
It depends. They change them all the time. The stuff that turned up in Tonga, for instance, had a bull on it. So they change the logo all the time. But yeah,
So why are you unable to tell us at the moment?
because it's early days.
How difficult is it to destroy that much cocaine, and how do you go about that?
It's incinerated.
Where?
We probably wouldn't comment on that.
It's early days.
Yeah, it's early.
And the strategy with, floating it, you've said that's not unusual. Is
Yeah.
there any trend to suggest that it's becoming more common, and why?
I think you've got to understand, as Bill's alluded to here, there's multiple ways in which organised crime will want to get its product into our country. They want to fly it in on planes. They want to bring it in the mail. They want to bring it on small craft. Sometimes they carry it in suitcases. So there's multiple ways in which they attempt to get products into the country, and this is just one of those ways. And it's probably the biggest way in which cocaine is transshipped around the world is in containers. Again, Europe is probably the biggest market, but out this way too. Because of our coastal, the large coast that we have, and the same for Australia. Then small craft attempts are viable for them. They'll have a go. Definitely have a go.
The GCSB or any other agencies involved in the operation?
We don't comment on any of our operational stuff.
Commissioner, you mentioned Five Eyes involvement. Can you just expand on that a little bit more for us, please?
Obviously,
Just in front of the microphone, sorry.
any time our investigations touch other countries in the region, we're able to call on those networks. As Greg said, we've got an extensive liaison officer network, but so have our partners, and we share information, we share investigation activity. So whilst we won't go into the detail of exactly where that sits here, there is a free flow of support between ourselves and the countries involved in the Five Eyes group.
And this operation was initiated in December 2022, and you said it arrived in Auckland yesterday. When did you guys find it? Like, do you have a date for that?
There's probably in the detail we
6
wouldn't
days ago.
comment on.
6.5 days ago.
Yeah.
And it's taken 6 days to get to Auckland?
Yeah.
Can I just clarify, the product wasn't destined for New Zealand and it wasn't found in New Zealand waters. Why New Zealand is leading this operation?
This is a scenario where we will work with partners and have a conversation about who's best placed. In this case, we're closest to be able to take the action.
Yeah, just because we are closest, we will be best placed to deal with it.
Yes.
If this is like an international, drug operation, can anyone actually, or will anyone actually be held accountable for it?
It's a wait and see, but what we do know from what we've demonstrated in the past is we have an increasing reach into other countries and are able to bring about prosecutions even though people feel safe where they are. So we would be optimistic of our ability to get a result there.
Can you talk us through the challenges you now face in terms of wanting to have an arrest? What challenges do you face going forward in being able to do that?
As with any offence, you need to be able to prove who was involved, what their intent was, and we need to be able to demonstrate jurisdiction. Of course, all of those things are at play in this one. We know, though, that we're able to work pretty effectively within New Zealand law and with our partner countries to be able to bring people to justice.
Do you have any idea in terms of numbers, how many staff were involved in this operation?
A number across many agencies.
Yeah.
Given no arrests were made, how big of a win is this really for police?
It's intercepting what would be 30 years worth of cocaine supply in New Zealand, and a year's worth in Australia is a huge result. We have a method of calculating social harm, and on the New Zealand calculation for this, if this was coming into New Zealand communities, $9.5 billion worth of social harm from drugs of this quantity. So it's massive, even without prosecutions, although we will still be pursuing those as well.
Could you just reiterate, just how big this will be for your Aussie counterpart? This is a win for them too, right?
It's quite unusual to have a year's worth of supply in a single shipment, if indeed it was destined for the Australian market. That would have had a massive impact in terms of increasing the availability of product in Australia, and of course it's always the goal of organised crime groups to increase the market through supply and by making it available cheaper. So this will be significant for them as well.
While it's obviously a real win to have this amount of cocaine taken out of the market, what concerns do police then have about what that might be replaced with in terms of more harmful substances?
Look, this is a constant battle, clearly, going after people who are supplying illicit drugs. Cocaine is a Class A controlled drug, so it's categorised as the highest level of harm alongside methamphetamine, heroin, etc. In terms of other steps to be taken, of course the enforcement activity continues, but we also need to look at the demand side of these problems as well and look to address the demand for drugs in our communities.
Sorry, could I just clarify the actual finding of this floating craft? So was that found by like an NZDF surveillance plane, or like who saw it?
We won't be going into the detail of that at this stage.
But it was a New Zealand agency?
It's well, just to clarify, it's not a craft.
Well, the
It's
floating
flotation,
pile
yeah.
of cocaine.
And again, we're not commenting operationally.
That's a question.
Can you provide any details about any surveillance which has taken place following the discovery of the cocaine?
No.
Is it too early to talk about budget? Do you know how much this cost all up?
It is too early.
Sorry, I just have one more. Can you just talk us through your next steps?
We will obviously be continuing our investigation in terms of this. The drug itself gets documented and destroyed, and the battle continues.
And just on logistics of destroying that, 81 bales, do we have the resources to actually destroy that in New Zealand?
Yes.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you, Suze.
Thank you.